Let's just talk today. Let's talk. Today is a very monumental day because this is the day that the creator behind the changers turns back on the path that he's walking and looks at his past self, acknowledges the faults, and with no pun intended, starts to make a change. Which has been the driving motivation behind this first to second month of the year. I've basically been reevaluating myself, and I'm being devoted to self-reflection and a change in results via a change in mindset and a change of habits. And the reason for that is I feel like I've gotten to the point where I want things so much. I want to get more of a following. I want to improve my art. I want my life to get better. I want to feel happy about myself. I want to disavow myself from properties that I feel like are dragging me down. I want to improve. I want to improve so much. To such an insane degree that I just decided to sit down and declare to myself, I'm done. I'm done with the bullshit. We need to go. I'm done with playing around. I'm done with the complaining. I'm done with being stuck in this trap of my own creation, of my own self-doubt. It's time to evolve. I'm done feeling sorry for myself. I'm done letting the ego get in the way of me admitting what I really need to admit. And on the topic of that, I think it's best that we start with Twitter. If you've already been following my Twitter, you know that I'm making an active effort in making my social media, and especially Twitter, more professional. And I detailed my experience with Twitter a little bit in my race representation in cartoons video, which was essentially a very angry deep dive into like why Twitter sucks and you can't have any mature adult conversation on that website. Which is true, and I still stand by that. Like, especially in the nerd scene. Let's not get into politics, but like, just talking about the nerd scene, right? Comic books. It's like a civil war, right? People arguing over suits. It's stupid. The point is, Twitter is a cesspool, and I don't want to indulge myself in that anymore. But a lot of it, admittedly, was my fault. Because, well, I just allowed myself to be immersed in that culture. I was posting art, I was working on the changers, I was posting my progress on the changers and on other smaller projects on my Twitter before. That hasn't stopped. But I've essentially moved the focus on my account to solely that. Because before, I used to do a lot of shit posting. I used to like post memes. I used to like reply with like funny images and stuff like that. And I have a very Gen Z sense of humor, so that kind of directly contradicts the sense of professionalism that I want to be known for. And I was ignoring that. I was essentially treating my account like a middle school playground, you know, just messing around, bullshitting, and I was running away from the fact that I needed to take myself seriously if I wanted to be taken seriously. So as an artist who is trying to get into the industry, as an artist who's trying to be recognized for his own efforts, it needed to go, right? It needed to go. And when it came to the changers itself, I did a pretty haphazard job of promoting the series. A lot of the efforts to like get it recognized were kind of needy. I mentioned this a little bit in my Ben 10 video that I posted the other week, where a lot of my posts came off as if they were whiny, as if they were needy, as if I was acting like I was owed something that I wasn't really owed, because no one is really owed clout on the internet. It's not an exchange, it's not a transaction. You just get it, right? Sometimes it's luck. Sometimes you make a banger post and you get 1,000 followers. Other times you may have industry standard work and you may only have 300, but it's not like a God-given right to get followers. But I thought of it that way. The reality is, if I try my best, my absolute best, in a hypothetical situation where, like, I would risk my mental health, my social life, and just stay in the room all day, grinding, making art, making comics, and posting them on the internet for a year, I'm not owed a single follower. There's nothing to say that there's no universal law to say that I deserve that. And there's no universal law to say that I don't deserve it. It's just a thing that happens. Growing is just a thing that happens. There's no mathematical equation. And that might suck for someone who's, trying to actively put their foot forward in the industry like me. But I'm kind of past the point where like, I need to ask for it, or I come off needy or beggy. So, long story short, yeah, my Twitter was unprofessional. And there was a lack of clarity and communication when it came to promoting the changers, which is something that I will get into later on. But I'm going to get into the second exhibit, if you will. The Discord. I opened a Discord server back in, I want to say, late 2019, and it was kind of a hub where people would like post their webcomics. I would feature several webcomics and give them their own like channel for them to post updates and stuff like that. And it was supposed to be like kind of a hub for like comic creators to grow. And over the, I want to say, next year or two, kind of lost sight of that, and it became unruly. So I made another one, and I opened it in June of 2020, and I made a video on this, what it opened. It was an announcement video saying that Discord is up and the website is up, come and check it out, whatever. The server's deleted now, and for the same reasons just about as it was before. It just became too, the jobs in moderation were not efficient. People were just posting whatever they wanted, and I kind of indulged in it, and I didn't want to be known for what was being posted there, because I have a familiarity with having Discord messages taken out of context and used to detract me. But that's a whole different story. The point of it is the Discord basically lost all its purpose, which is weird because of the fact that promoting the changers on Twitter and on Instagram was really shoddy. Like, there was no clarity in it. I was just posting stuff. The Discord server was essentially the only place people could come to get close to me and find out more about the series in a more definite, surefire way. Because, if they ask questions, I could just answer them up front. And it led to, kind of a small but fairly active community of Changers fans. But I want to say things got out of hand with that too. Yeah, of course there were normal functioning humans in society, but there are some people, some members, who I don't know. I don't want to get too into it, but they were very detailed in descript documentations, I want to say, of these members in question wanting to have relations with characters I make. Let's just leave it at that. things got kind of weird. And it came down to me, and I basically told myself I appreciate their investment in the series, but I don't want to host this environment where things get creepy. So that was one of the big reasons why I deleted the server. I want to have a more public relation with the fan base, not have anything be taken out of context, not have anything be used against me, just due to a lack of moderation or a lack of effort in moderating or encouraging that behavior. So outside of the few vocal fans that were really active in those chats, the server was kind of dead. A lot of people came and went, came and left. A lot of people joined the server who didn't actually come for changers. I released the server to the public probably during the peak era of my Ben 10 notoriety arc, if you want to call it that. So a lot of the people who joined the server were looking for Ben 10 content and not necessarily what I had to offer. So as the server went on, I made it increasingly clear that this is a changer server, and I eventually went forward in banning Ben 10 as a franchise from that server, which made it a lot deader. It wasn't nearly as active, which should have been a red flag. But there were so many instances in which I wanted to talk passionately about the changers, so I just started starting a conversation in the changers chat in that server, and it was like talking to a brick wall. And I kept doing it, and I kept doing it, hoping that there was a small chance that someone would lead onto the conversation. And a lot of times, there was a lead onto the conversation. There were a few in-depth conversations that I did like having. I did have a Q&A channel, I had a fan art channel, and stuff like that. I made channels that would actively prompt people to get interested and interact with the creator in a more definite way than, just liking a post on Instagram or Twitter, you know what I mean? So, the server definitely was a great way to get people more invested in the changers, because you could see me unfiltered, just loving the thing I made. But more often than not, it was just me talking to a brick wall and throwing something out there, hoping someone would catch it, but a lot of the time, it just fell to the ground. So, that's one of the reasons why I just said, no, it's not healthy to continue this. Why am I pouring myself out there if I haven't even garnered a well-established fan base in order to, reciprocate? And all that is my fault. Again, I'm not gonna whine. We're gonna get to that next, actually. We're gonna get to establishing the fan base and a severe lack of clarity. So, the Changers Xonerate defense, the current era of the Changers that we're in, launched in 2020 with a 3-part introduction chapter called Countdown. The chapter was relatively simple in its narrative structure, and after further consideration over the next coming months, I wasn't really proud of the way it established the world. I felt like I could have done a lot better job of introducing Xonerate as a concept, who the Changers are, their interactions with each other, and their relation with the world around them. And I also kind of wanted to touch on their origin. I did a little bit with the follow-up chapter to Countdown called Xonerate Destiny. And that chapter was basically just a paragraph or two exploring the origin of the Changers in a broader sense. So I kind of left those chapters sit for a little while. I put them on a webtoon and I kind of let them sit. And meanwhile, I was thinking, and I basically told myself, no, I have so much at the forefront that I missed out on telling. We need to redo these chapters. So I announced in, I think, June. I don't remember for sure, actually. I need to check the YouTube channel. But it was sometime in early to mid 2021 I announced that I was going to redraw those chapters, Countdown and Xonerate Destiny. And I was going to rename the original ones the beta chapters. Just so you know that these are the old versions. The ones I'm going to draw are the newer canon versions. So I went to work, and in October of 2021, Xonerate Destiny Part 1 drops. The first part of this redraw. The new canon version of the events of the series. And I put Xonerate Destiny first, ahead of Countdown, because, well, I felt like it was the origin and a lot of context needed to be had in order to fully grasp the story of Countdown that was coming up, which was going to be a lot more complicated than what I originally did in 2020. So Xonerate Destiny Part 1 drops, and during the weeks following that, I was kind of like, Part 1 took a long while to redraw, or to essentially make. It wasn't really a redraw, it was essentially just making a new chapter, because there's so much more detail, so much more narrative complexity, just right off the get-go, and that was only Part 1. So I came to the conclusion that making these chapters is going to take a long time. So what I did was, and I wanted to release stuff at a relatively frequent schedule. So what I did was, a month later, I dropped a chapter called It's Only Temporal. And this chapter was essentially me taking unfinished redraw pages from Countdown and making them into a chapter. Because you gotta understand, I started redrawing Countdown before I started redrawing Xonerate Destiny. But I decided that I was going to release Xonerate Destiny first because it's the origin story, and in order to understand Countdown, you needed that context. Which is weird because I dropped It's Only Temporal, which was literally just unfinished Countdown redraw pages. So you weren't going to have context anyway reading that when I dropped it on Webtoon. But I did that because I just needed something out, right? I needed something out, and because there was no context, reading Part 1 of Xonerate Destiny and then reading It's Only Temporal right after, you have no idea what's going on. You have no idea what's going on. And I knew people were going to be polarized, but I figured, screw it, I need something out. And people were polarized. People asked a lot of questions to understand what was happening, and other people were just like, this doesn't make any sense. And I dismissed it. I said, it's going to make sense. Just wait. I have it planned out. And the people who asked me questions, I answered them. But that's the thing. People shouldn't have to ask questions about a chapter so early on in the series, because I dropped it out of the blue. It didn't make any sense in the context of the last chapter, and the fact that it needed an explanation simply meant it shouldn't be there. But of course, it was out because I felt like I needed something out. Because the workflow of the chapters was very, very slow, but detailed. A lot of attention to detail. So because I realized that this doesn't make any sense to people, or I should say, because I had to come face to face with the fact that it didn't make any sense to people, because I was dismissing it, I planned a follow-up chapter called "But You're Doing Great." So the full title of it would be "It's Only Temporal, But You're Doing Great." The full title of, that 2-part deal going on, and it was essentially going to act as damage control, giving an in-universe explanation as to why this completely separate, out-of-context chapter dropped with no established characters. And I had the script completed. But it was at that point where I just sat down and I'm like, see, in order to do this, there needs to be a well-established world. You can't do this in a chapter right after part 1 of the first chapter of the entire franchise. You just can't do it. It's gonna lose too many people. So I canceled it. I canceled But You're Doing Great, and I deleted It's Only Temporal off of Webtoon. I said to myself, I know you wanted something out, but if you really care about the direction in which this is going and the way people respond to it, you need to delete that chapter. Because you gotta understand, Xonerate Destiny is planned out. The entire 4-part chapter of Xonerate Destiny is planned out. The only reason I released It's Only Temporal is to have something to fill the gap between part 1 and part 2. Because while I was doing a lot of work on part 2, it still took a long time. It still took a vastly long time, just because of that attention to detail and that attention to the script, the attention to storyboarding. I knew it was going to take a long time. But I mean, I basically told myself, like, you can't do this, man. If you respect yourself, and if you respect the people reading your comic, you can't just do this. You can't just drop the ball. You just can't. You can't just make left turns when the gas just started running in the car, right? You just can't do that. You have to introduce them to the world. You have to give context as to what's going on. Take them through this journey. Don't throw them out the car and ask them to find their own way and then pick them back up. You can't do that. So, long story short, It's Only Temporal and But You're Doing Great. Those 2 chapters that tie into each other, they're gone, they're canceled. I felt like I needed to do it. Xonerate Destiny Part 2 is continuing production. I feel like in order to go and take left turns and do all this bullcrap, I gotta establish the origin first. I need to establish the world of the Changers first before I go and like subvert all your expectations with this bullcrap with characters that you don't even know, right? It's just basic narrative etiquette, right? You want to take your readers on a ride, not necessarily a linear, straightforward, boring one, but you gotta be there with them. Let them know where they're going. You can always add plot twists. You can always subvert expectations, but you can't do it on the second chapter. It just doesn't work. That's not the way it works. You're gonna lose too many viewers, and I figure it's about time that I come to terms with that. So that's the reason why It's Only Temporal is gone from Webtoon. Like I said before, I was gonna damage control it by writing But You're Doing Great, but I wouldn't have trusted myself with that. Like, I would be lying to myself if I published a chapter with the guise that, oh, I had everything planned in this aspect. Because Xonerate Destiny has a plan, a very vivid one at that, but It's Only Temporal it kind of wedged its way into that plan because I needed something out. And It's Only Temporal did not have a real plan. It did not have a real script. I can't just drop shit out there without giving it time. Which leads me to the next point. In October of 2021, I revealed 15 characters that would have voice actors that I published a casting call for back earlier that year. But most of the characters in that casting call have not been established in canon. You don't know the first thing about them. You have a PNG and you have a voice, which is a fault on my part. Obviously, we don't need to introduce every character at once, and I just explained why that's a bad idea. You gotta let things sit, give them time, let them naturally ease their way into the narrative, yada yada yada. Then in late November, I posted a video on YouTube listing the characters that would be in the second wave F casting call. And I recently wrapped up casting on that. All the casting in that second casting call is done. But I will not be releasing a video announcing each actor like I did before. Because we're at the point where I have 30 characters that now have voice actors, and you probably only know 4 or 5 of them in an in-depth manner. Not even in an in-depth manner, actually. I revoked that. You just know them. You just have heard them speak or have seen them speak in a comic sense, you know what I mean? That's why voice actors for the new characters will not be revealed unless they have a significant on-screen appearance. I don't feel comfortable with just announcing voice actors for characters that all you know them from are just PNGs. You know what I mean? In like a simple 2 or 3 sentence description that I posted on Casting Call Club. I feel like there are too many characters in order for me to afford doing that now. I've got to have them be in the comic. I've got to have them be in post, have me talking about them, have me drawing art of them, really allowing you to get to know the characters before, I just announce who's voicing them. Because then overall, you'll just have more investment in the character. If you know who's voicing them, and also if you just know them, if you just are familiar with the character and take a liking to them. In terms of the comic itself, production continues as usual. We're not going to have any shoehorned inserted chapters that were not part of the original plan, unless we have a really damn good reason to. A reason that is not, we need something to put out, right? So the way it looks right now, I'm going to be making an extended version of chapter 1 during this week break I have in between semesters. Then afterwards, I'm going to be continuing work on chapter 2. When it comes to the comic dub and additional content like animations, they will start getting their foot off the ground once we've maintained a steady workflow for the comic itself. And that will most likely be when all parts of the origin Xonerate Destiny are completed. Xonerate Destiny, all 4 parts that have been planned for Xonerate Destiny need to be completed concisely with no interruptions. It's an origin story that exists to establish the status quo for the future of the series. So naturally, when it's done, the floodgates of content will open. More characters will be introduced, more concepts of the world will be introduced, we'll be able to do animations, we'll be able to expand with the comic dub, but we need to get that origin started and done in its entirety in a solid manner. I really need the series to have a strong start, and I can't jeopardize it because of a need to have things out faster. Again, quality over quantity. Once we have that basis and that standard of quality down packed, we can then expand. we have a base to go off of. By the time Xonerate Destiny Part 4 is over, the seed would have been planted, and thus the roots of the franchise will be able to grow. So right now the priority is getting all 4 parts of Xonerate Destiny finished. Solid. So solid you could probably compile them together and put them into a graphic novel and sell it. That's how solid I need it to be. I'm also now going to start working to build a community through social media instead of Discord, and I'm doing it in a more professional manner. That means no more out-of-pocket memes. That means no more shit posting, flooding. that's a mighty voice crack. Flooding my media tab with shit that doesn't matter. You know what I mean? We need to be set straight. We need to give people a really clear reason as to why they should be following. And that also means posting more frequently about the changers, not being ashamed about it. We don't need to sell out, but we need to present what we have to offer in an organized way, in a more frequent manner, diving deep into the content of the story, detailing characters behind the scenes of the creations of the characters, the concept art. We need to show this to people. We've got to sell them. I can't just post one tweet saying, "Oh, you should really read the changers," but not really giving any reason. I can't just tweet saying, "Here's Eva's theme song," when you don't know who Eva is and why you should care, right? We've basically got to work towards selling this franchise to people. And that ties into essentially my last point. One thing I've always hated about my past videos on the changers is that none of them really go deep into the contents of the series. Yeah, I've made videos like what changers characters sound like. Oh, here are the voice actor reveals for each of the characters in Wave 1. Here's an overview of the franchise and what to expect from its writing, what to expect from its humor. It's going to tackle these social issues. But in reality, I haven't really talked much about the lore itself or the story or the characters. You'd really only get that through maybe my Twitter account and like just asking me on Discord. There's going to be a lot more effort in making you care, essentially, on all fronts. On Instagram, on Twitter, on YouTube. In its complete simplest form, I'm trying to do 3 things this year. I'm trying to own up to my mistakes. I'm trying to become more professional. And I'm trying to give you a reason to give a shit. Thank you for talking with me.